But that's exactly what the agency has been doing following new talk of the drug ivermectin. When the government labels you as dead, it puts into motion a chain reaction that's almost impossible to stop. The very next day, the city sent out crews and marked all of our complaints as completed. We returned to some of these light poles, and this is what we found. It came out in court that you were actually drunk on the job, and yet you were the manager. So what responsibility do you take for what happened? How is an officer going to respond to an emergency if they don't have fuel in their cars?
That was a mistake.
It's exclusively online, no coins or paper involved. It looks like a bunch of numbers. Think of it as a computer file you can store in a digital wallet that you can access on your smartphone or computer.
It wasn't my office that dropped the ball, it was my investigators that dropped the ball, yes.
You're in charge of those
Yes,
investigators,
sure.
or your employees, they represent this office.
We made a mistake. I mean, there's no doubt we made a mistake. We made a huge mistake.
I'm sure you've seen your own permit, or you know it exists.
I know a permit exists.
So is it fair that they have to breathe these chemicals? What do you plan to do for these drivers who damage their vehicles, arguably through your company's negligence?
I don't think it was our company's negligence.
So nothing. If you found the ring, where did it go?
I have no idea. I have no idea. We don't have any record of a ring.
Is this a record?
That's a record. I mean, I don't have the ring.
Steve Peterson pleaded not guilty to that felony charge. His case is expected to go to trial in the coming months. While her office is investigating, we decided to take a look at the laws surrounding personal property and your rights to defend yourself. Police had a suspect, but the circuit attorney's office for months refused to issue charges because the officer involved in that case was on the exclusion list. Well, just moments ago in this area, we see another ambulance responding to a call about a possible overdose. He tells us that Stevens denies the charges and is looking forward to fighting them in court. For the I-Team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side. Every evening, like clockwork, thousands of lights illuminate the city. They're supposed to make you feel safer, but in some cases, they do just the opposite.
It's not safe for an adult, much less a child.
In front of Karen Kaiser's home daycare, exposed wires
Don't touch it.
spill out of this city streetlight.
If they see something like that, they want to touch it.
Karen is right to be concerned. In 1990, a child was killed after touching exposed wires from a city light pole. In 2016, another child was hospitalized after touching an exposed wire in Windsor Park.
A kid could come here and play with this and touch it just right and be dead.
The I-Team asked electrician Eric Wolf to tag along as we visited broken streetlights around the city. Most had open complaints with the Citizen Service Bureau dating back years. Our first stop, a light on North Grand. According to CSB data, it's been like this for 3 years. And neighbors reported exposed wires where these lights used to be on Clara 2 years ago.
It's beeping. It's telling me, hey, there's voltage present.
Margot Sweeney is a grandmother sick of living beside the danger.
Someone can injure themselves because there's plenty of kids that get off the bus right there.
One wrong step on this city street and you may need a tetanus shot. That was the case with our photographer. He was gouged by the sharp metal coming out of the light pole.
That's dangerous. There's no sign here. It's not coned off. There's no protection around it.
Just a block away from Forest Park on this busy Central West End street, the I-Team found even more damaged streetlights.
They can brush up against that wire with their leg, and given the right circumstance, it could kill them. It's bound to happen if it doesn't get covered up and fixed.
The I-Team reported these light poles with exposed wiring the same way residents would. The very next day, the city sent out crews and marked all of our complaints as completed. We returned to some of these light poles, and this is what we found. A barrel on these live wires and a few wraps of electrical tape on others. Do you think putting a barrel on live wires, is that sufficient? Is that good enough?
If that's all we did, no. You can put a barricade over it in order to make it safe until you can come back.
Jamie Wilson is the director of streets for the city of St. Louis. Both of these requests were marked as completed. So does that mean anyone is going to come back?
The base plate with the tape around there should not be a permanent, but the final solution will be banding. I'll look at those for sure.
If it had been Central West End, Creve Coeur, it would have been corrected the same day.
Margot's right. The I-Team took a look at census data and CSB reports. 9 neighborhoods where the majority of residents are white had the fastest response times to light pole complaints. It took an average of 9 days before complaints were closed by the city. In 22 city neighborhoods where the majority of residents are black, response times averaged 40 days, more than 4 times as long. Wilson says location isn't even a consideration for his crews.
Everybody here comes to work to replace the lights. They really don't care, again, where it's at.
You can do it, Nana.
Until they're fixed, residents like Margot and Karen can't let their guard down.
I should be able to send my kids out in the front yard, and my grandson should be able to ride his scooter, and I shouldn't have to worry about this being a safety hazard.
After our interview, Wilson sent out crews to put a more permanent fix on those light poles. Interestingly enough, on average, 1 light pole is knocked down per day, and they cost about $1,000 to replace. For the I-Team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side. Last summer, wedding bells rang in Wyoming for Lucy Peterson, but it wasn't the happy occasion every mother dreams of.
I'm like, somebody has to do something here.
Married? What are you talking about, married? She's 17. How is this possible? Who can allow this?
It was the latest twist in a bitter multi-year custody battle between Lucy's mom, Kathy Kilo Peterson, and her ex-husband, Steve Peterson. A judge found Steve Peterson arranged to have 17-year-old Lucy marry the son of one of his friends, a 30-year-old musician she didn't know.
I was shocked, but somehow not surprised that he would pull something like this. To emancipate her from the Missouri court? How can you get any worse than that?
Despite having primary custody, Kathy hasn't seen her daughter in more than a year. To understand how we got here, let's go back to 2005. Lucy was 2, and the Petersons were headed for divorce.
Steve tried to kill me and held us hostage in our home.
Peterson was convicted of domestic assault. That conviction was later expunged, but his trouble with the courts continued. Court records show Peterson secretly took Lucy out of state 42 times, ultimately taking her out of school and away from her mother. Then came that marriage in Wyoming.
Not even a slap on the wrist.
In January, a court-appointed therapist testified Lucy was the victim of psychological abuse by her father. A judge ordered Steve Peterson to get counseling and stay away from Lucy for 90 days. It didn't happen.
I have a worthless piece of paper that says Kathy has sole legal and sole physical custody of my daughter who's missing.
We've learned family court doesn't have the power to enforce many of their own rulings. St. Charles County prosecutor Tim Lomar.
The Supreme Court several years ago made it much more difficult, for better or for worse, for a civil court to hold someone in contempt and jail that person.
That's when Lomar was contacted about the case. Finally, in April, a felony warrant was issued for Steve Peterson's arrest. He's charged with interfering with custody. Lucy's whereabouts are still unknown. Why aren't you able to use your authority as the county prosecutor to compel Lucy's dad to reveal her location?
And the court denied that enforcing him to do something like this would be a violation of his Fifth Amendment rights.
Because it's self-incrimination? He doesn't have to say? It's unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable.
Peterson is under GPS monitoring as a condition of his bond. We repeatedly tried to get in touch with him, his mother, and his sister, with no response.
There's Lucy there.
Meantime, a judge ruled Lucy's marriage was a sham. It was annulled last fall. And with her 18th birthday just weeks away, Kathy Peterson hopes to find Lucy before she's legally lost to her forever.
I will never give up on her. She's my daughter.
Steve Peterson pleaded not guilty to that felony charge. His case is expected to go to trial in the coming months. Now, if you've seen Lucy Peterson, contact Frontenac Police. For the I-Team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side. Welcome to the St. Louis City tow lot, where some people say once a vehicle passes through these gates, you may never see it again.
You don't just lose vehicles.
James Mundy, a former commissioner at the city's tow lot, is just one of several employees who've reported suspicious activity to the city and to the I team.
Well, I believe the citizens of St. Louis are definitely being scammed.
According to Missouri policy, here's how the lot is supposed to operate. Once a vehicle is towed by the city, the owner has 30 days to get their car back by paying the required fees. If a car goes unclaimed, it can either go to public auction, be sold for parts, or get crushed. Regardless of what happens to it, the city is supposed to make money off every vehicle stored on the lot. Current and former employees we talk to say that's not happening.
They know how to go in there and change the numbers and the name.
This current tow lot employee asked us not to reveal her identity. She's worried about losing her job. She worked with the I team to dissect hundreds of pages of tow lot records obtained through a Sunshine Law request. We found over an 11-month period in 2019, 155 cars on the lot were marked as redeemed, but with no money paid.
This is the total amount that the city was going to charge had the individual picked it up. You see down here, nothing was paid. It was redeemed, but it doesn't have the person it was redeemed to.
If our whistleblower is right, that's nearly $78,000 worth of tow and storage fees that the city missed out on. Car theft victims are the only people who can get their car back without a fee as long as it's done within a few days. Other than that,
Even a total vehicle, there are parts that are valuable. Yeah, no vehicle's going out there for free.
200, 225.
Another set of records involves vehicles sold at auction. The records we looked at, there's no buyer listed.
You got to have a valid driver's license and ID to get these vehicles. Nothing's on there to show who it was sold to. They put a frivolous name on there. Some of the addresses have 9999 unknown.
If any of these allegations sound familiar, it's because various clouds of scandal have passed over the city's tow lot for years. Most recently, in 2019, the I team uncovered this police report showing some cars were leaving the lot without the city seeing a dime.
It's a lot of people involved, and how many and how high up, I don't know.
State Senator Carla May says she's heard about mismanagement at the tow lot from several employees and a relative who once worked there. She urged the St. Louis mayor's office to investigate in 2019.
Cars were disappearing, set aside, held over, no money collected for the cars.
We brought all of these allegations to the man in charge, Commissioner of Streets, Kent Flake. Why are cars leaving the tow lot for free?
Cars should not be leaving city tow for free. All of 2020, we've been audited by both city and state. And to the best of my knowledge in all of these, they've never found that.
The I team is still waiting to see those audit reports. After the 2019 police investigation, Commissioner Flake says City Tow made several changes.
We went to a third-party auctioneer in fall of 19. Prior to that, the auction was ran by tow lot employees. We installed 3 more cameras. We built in several layers of, not necessarily management, but overseeing of positions.
Despite those upgrades, City Tow still does not have a manual of standard operating procedures.
We do have about 40 signs up on a wall with our work rules on them. We've been trying to get an actual work rule manual actually put together so there would be no question about it.
That police report we told you about from 2019, well, it turns out that case is still open. Police couldn't give us any more details. If you've had a questionable experience with the city tow lot, we want to hear from you. Email me directly at prandhawa@ksdk.com. For the I team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side.